This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on social justice session. The participants are Neerja Chowdhury, political analyst, and Vinay Kumar, journalist.
Parliament has passed a crucial bill that provides for stringent action against those involved in crimes against scheduled castes and tribes. In fact, Parliament cleared this bill to overturn a Supreme Court order which reportedly diluted some of the provisions of the law protecting Dalits and tribals from atrocities. The Scheduled Castes and the Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Amendment Bill also provides for establishing special courts to try such offences and the rehabilitation of victims, and it aims at prohibiting the commission of offences against members of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities. It also takes into account that assault or a sexual exploitation of an SC or ST woman will be an offence under the bill, which says that any intentional offence or inappropriate touching of an SC or ST woman in a sexual manner without her consent. So these are some of the provisions in this bill which have given it more teeth. Neerja ji, ABC Supreme Court had put a bar on arrest. So now there was a hue and cry about overturning the Supreme Court order, and politicians from all political parties were of the view that it will not help the cause of SC, ST and Dalits, against whom atrocities and crimes are being perpetrated by people from other segments of the society. So we can say this was a political call, and everyone united to pass this bill. Earlier this week in Parliament, all the parties were almost unanimous in giving a go-ahead to this amendment and SC/ST bill.
You know, the Prime Minister said that the ongoing Parliament session should be marked as a social justice session. And that is because of the bill that you're talking about, the Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Amendment Bill. And that had been passed, it was under use. Under its provisions, you could have anybody, FIR filed against everybody the moment there was a complaint by a scheduled caste or a scheduled tribe person, any complaint of atrocity. And the person did not get bail, and it was a very easy kind of process. So there had been a cry against it that it was being misused. And therefore the Supreme Court gave the ruling that you must have a preliminary inquiry before you file an FIR, and the clearance of a superior officer, and that provisions of anticipatory bail be also there. Now, these observations by the Supreme Court led to an outrage by Dalit leaders, both outside the NDA as well as the parties inside the NDA that are Dalit dominated, like Ramvilas Paswan's party, like Mr. Athawale, and they took a pretty belligerent, aggressive stand. So the cabinet then decided to go in for status quo ante, restoring what was there. But actually in the passage of the bill, it's not only the restoration of status quo ante, but the bill has been given even more teeth. For instance, you talked about SC, ST women not being touched without their permission. And this whole custom of Devadasis, these women dedicated to the gods in temples, but actually subjected to huge sexual harassment by upper caste. This practice has been going on in many parts of India, and huge number of studies have been done, and yet it continues. So this is one other part. Then, the wrongful capture of lands owned by the SC/STs under one garb or another, one guise or another, that also the bill has alluded to. The bill has been strengthened, and this has made the parties in the NDA that were crying for it, that the observations of the Supreme Court be undone, happy. But the underlying issue is the Dalit anger. The Dalit anger, Dalit unhappiness has been seen in many parts of the country. It's an issue that the government has been worried about. And given that its own parties within the government were not happy, I think it bent over backwards to set the record straight.
This bill touches upon several other practices which will now be considered an offence, like dedicating an SC or ST woman as a Devdasi to a temple, or any other similar practice will be considered an offence. And as you said, wrongfully occupying land belonging to SCs or STs will be an offence under this bill. And it also declares as an offence garlanding with footwear, compelling to dispose or carry human or animal carcasses, or do manual scavenging, abusing SCs or STs by caste name in public, attempting to promote feelings of ill will against SCs or STs, or disrespecting any deceased person held in high esteem and imposing or threatening a social or economic boycott. And the bill also specifies that a non-SC or ST public servant who neglects his duties relating to SCs or STs shall be punishable with imprisonment for 6 months to 1 year. And similarly, it will have new categories of actions to be treated as offences like forcing an SC or ST individual to vote or not vote for a particular candidate in an illegal manner. So all these aspects, all these incidents or practices, as you were pointing out, they have also been brought under the purview of this bill. So as you rightly said, giving more teeth. And we have seen, many social customs where SC or ST bridegroom wanted to, take out a marriage procession through the streets, or wanted to go on a horse carriage, which was objected to by people from upper caste. So these social customs also need to be, revisited in such modern times.
No, I'm just reading that, a Dalit youngster in Punjab forced to drink his own urine. So this is like a backlash by the upper classes often. And it all boils down to the wrongs that have been done over the centuries towards the SCs and STs. There's no doubt about that. And these laws that we have seen enacted is a way of correcting those wrongs. Now, I know this, the SC/ST Act, for instance, in Uttar Pradesh, it's not that a lot of the SCs had improved in recent times, whether it's jobs, education, not so much. And as Anupriya Patel has said in Parliament, that there are very few SC/STs and OBCs in the judiciary, for instance. I know Mr. K.R. Narayanan former President, had once talked about this also. So that's a question of representation, and they need to be given more opportunity. But the Supreme Court's observations, I think, also point to us another story, which is the potential misuse that can take place. If you don't have safeguards built into the whole system, I want to fix you for something not because of SC/ST factor. I know in some universities, for instance, if the guide pulls up the student, he happens to be SC/ST, and says the quality of your work is very poor, you have to do better work, the SC/ST student can actually file, technically speaking, an FIR saying I'm being harassed or atrocities against me because I'm SC/ST. Now, those kind of misuse can take place, and the minister said in Parliament that those cases of misuse, from what they have got feedback on, is about 10 to 12%. The remaining 88% is, goes against the Dalits. So you've got to weigh up, there is the possibility of misuse, but you've got to weigh up the larger good. And obviously the government has done that. Successive governments have done that. It's not just this government. The Dalit factor has emerged as a very major factor, and it's going to be a major concern for every political party in the forthcoming elections in 2019.
He was replying to debate, Minister for Social Justice and Empowerment, Thawar Chand Gehlot, said the government was in favor of reservation also, and it will continue to be in favor of reservation for SC/ST people. And Mr. Gehlot also pointed out that the amendment will strengthen legislative provisions to protect people from SC/ST communities. And the review petition had also been filed by the government, which is still pending. And because of this delay in Supreme Court and rising anger, as you said, among the Dalit community, there was a need to amend this Article 18. Minister said in his reply. Even Congress leader Mallikarjun Kharge, he also said that the government should have brought this bill as an ordinance much earlier and demanded that the proposed law be included in the 9th schedule of Constitution, which was a demand raised by Chirag Paswan also, Ramvilas Paswan's son.
The 9th schedule means that the judiciary, it doesn't go under scrutiny
it is away
of
from the jurisdiction of courts.
That's right.
Mr. Kharge also said the government should withdraw cases against people who had taken part in the nationwide protest on April 20th against the court's order. And their weaker sections among them are still not empowered and still don't know about their rights, and still they are away from the social justice phenomena.
They happen to be, SCs are 15% and STs are 7%, so they happen to be 22% of the country's population, which is just 1/5. meaning out of 5 Indians, one is either an SC or an ST. And while you are absolutely right, large swathes of them, large populations are still very poor, still don't have access to good education, livelihood, and yet today they have the power, the clout to get every single party to fall in line. This bill and even the observations of the Supreme Court had to be undone by a legislation, and it was passed unanimously by Parliament. And that is the magic of our democracy, where power has devolved to communities who did not have that power yesterday but have it today.
Union Minister Anupriya Patel also pointed out that representation of SC, ST and backward communities is very low in various arms like judiciary or the government. And till the time this issue is addressed, several other aspects and judgments like this which the Supreme Court gave will continue to haunt the community. So, pointing to the representation in judiciary, in higher echelons of governance, the representation of SC, STs is quite low.
No, that is what she says. That's what K.R. Narayanan had also mentioned this years ago. I once remember reading this figure that the SC, ST girls together will probably form the largest pool of illiterate girls in the world in terms of absolute numbers. So despite the strides we are making, there's a long, long way to go. And that also shows our failure in the sense, while they've been strengthened politically, that demanding their share in the pie, they still have a long way to go as far as education goes. Long way to go as far as good employment goes. Long way to go, as Anupriya Patel says, a representation in the profession in the country which are prized, whether it's the judiciary or whether it's the legal fraternity or whether it's the government, whether it's the media. You take any kind of profession today.
In the beginning, you pointed out the Prime Minister Modi's remark that the Social Justice Week in Parliament, the theme of social justice was dominated the proceedings the past week or till this Monday when this legislation was passed. So there was another bill which got the parliamentary nod of giving a constitutional status to the commission. So that is also a welcome step in the right direction, where classification of backward castes could be done in a much more rational way with the consent and consideration of the states. The list can be sent to the state, to the center, which will notify who comes in the backward classes, because it was pointed out during discussion, debate, and other political leaders and people have also said that, there is a race among even those who belong to creamy layer that they should get included in the list of backward castes in the OBCs. So that itself is quite tricky.
Again, we've come a long way from 1990 when Mr. V.P. Singh implemented the Mandal Commission's report, which had been gathering dust in some almara of the Secretariat, to give 27% reservation in government jobs to the OBCs. Now, at that time, the parties were divided. Today, every party will be agreeable. Nobody is now countering the principle of affirmative action. And it's not only OBCs now, as you're saying, the Marathas, the Jats, the Patidars in Gujarat, they all want to be considered. And so they are now demanding to be categorized as OBCs. This is something Mr. Devendra Fadnavis's government is having to contend with now, with Maratha agitation going on in Maharashtra currently. So giving it a rational character. For instance, Baniya is an upper caste in most parts of the country. In certain states, Baniya is an OBC. So you have to rationalize it. State and central, which are the communities that come under OBCs, which don't. And that's a tricky one. Whoever gets left out is going to revolt. That has political implications.
Absolutely correct, Neerja. And we hope that this wheel of social justice will move ahead, forward, and these kind of legislations will only help in checking atrocities and crimes against SCs and STs, and social justice in the form of rationalizing the classification of backward castes will also be done. Thank you, Neerja, for this discussion.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on social justice session. The participants were Neerja Chowdhury, political analyst, and Vinay Kumar, journalist. The program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.